spine-chilling truckers' tales, real or imagined. Chilling stories from on-the-road truckers are almost as old as the profession itself, and drivers still report unexplained and mysterious phenomena to this day. For these men and women who make their living on the asphalt arteries of our country, countless hours blur by, days melting into nights and back again. Often traveling alone and at all hours of the night, truckers see parts of the country many of us do not. Desolate stretches of highway, forgotten towns and roads where the only company is the moon overhead. It's in these moments, alone in the darkness, where the line between reality and imagination can blur. The mind can certainly play tricks on us when we are tired or in parts unknown, but could these stories be true? Or are they the product of colorful imaginations and tired eyes? Are these truckers truly experiencing something sinister and unexplained, or are they simply victims of their own exhaustion? It's a question that has haunted travelers for as long as we've been traversing these roads. We'll let you decide, but in honor of the spooky season, here are a few eerie on-the-road stories as told by truckers. Stories whispered between shifts, shared in hushed tones at truck stops, passed down from one generation of drivers to the next. These are the tales that make you lock your doors a little tighter and keep one eye on the rearview mirror. It was a dark and stormy night. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the lines between the road and the surrounding forest. Big Joe, a veteran trucker with 1,000,000 miles under his belt, was hauling a load of lumber through the heart of Montana. The highway stretched before him, a ribbon of black in a sea of swirling gray. He was alone, or so he thought. As he rounded a bend, his headlights illuminated a lone figure huddled by the side of the road, thumb outstretched.
It was a young woman dressed in a white dress, her face obscured by the downpour. I hesitated. It was late, the weather was treacherous, and something about the situation felt off. But the thought of leaving a young woman stranded on a night like this gnawed at me, so I pulled over.
The woman practically leaped into the cab, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and something else, something Big Joe couldn't quite place. She thanked him profusely, her voice a soft whisper, and gave him directions to a small town just a few miles down the road. As they drove, Big Joe tried to make small talk, but the woman remained unnervingly silent, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. The only sound was the rhythmic thump of the windshield wipers and the low hum of the engine. As they approached the turnoff the woman had indicated, Big Joe slowed down, glancing at his passenger, expecting her to point out her destination. But when he looked over, the seat beside him was empty. There was no sign of the woman, no open door, no trace of her presence. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. They say that Highway 50 through Nevada is one of the loneliest roads in America. Miles and miles of desolate desert landscape where the only signs of life are the occasional lizard or the swirling dust devils dancing in the distance. It was on this unforgiving stretch of highway that a young trucker named Sarah found herself facing a night of pure terror.
I was new to the open road, but determined to make my mark in a man's world, hauling a load of electronics to Reno. The air hung heavy and silent, the only sound the drone of my engine and the static crackle of my CB radio. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the desert, I noticed a set of headlights appearing in my rear-view mirror. They were far off, just pinpricks of light against the fading glow of the sky.
As she continued driving, she noticed that the lights were gaining on her, slowly but steadily. Sarah kept her eye on the lights, her pulse quickening. She was used to sharing the road with other truckers, but there was something about this convoy that sent chills down her spine. Their headlights were unusually dim, almost spectral, and their silhouettes seemed to shimmer and distort in the heat haze. She tried to rationalize it away, telling herself it was just the long hours and the isolation playing tricks on her mind. But as the convoy drew closer, their headlights now casting an eerie, almost otherworldly glow inside her cab, she could no longer ignore the feeling of dread that had settled in her stomach. These trucks, she realized with a growing sense of horror, were like nothing she had ever seen before. They were ancient, rusted hulks, their bodies twisted and mangled, as if they had been driven straight out of a nightmare. The closer they got, the more Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to speed up, to put as much distance between her rig and those ghostly vehicles as possible. But just as quickly as they had appeared, they vanished. One minute they were right behind her, their spectral headlights filling her cab with an unnatural light. The next they were gone, swallowed by the darkness as if they had never existed at all. Chapter 3. The Rest Stop Apparition. For truckers, rest stops are a lifeline on the open road, a place to refuel, grab a bite to eat, and catch a few hours of sleep before getting back behind the wheel. But for one trucker, a late-night stop at a deserted rest area turned into a terrifying encounter he would never forget.
I'm Mark, a seasoned trucker known for my no-nonsense attitude and my love for a good ghost story. One night, I found myself pulling into a desolate rest stop somewhere in rural West Virginia. It was well past midnight, the moon hidden behind a thick curtain of clouds, and the only light came from the flickering neon sign at the entrance. The rest stop was deserted, the parking lot empty except for my rig. I parked my truck, the silence of the night broken only by the gentle hum of my engine. I stepped out of my cab, a wave of cold air washing over me, and made my way to the restroom.
As Mark was washing his hands, he glanced at his reflection in the cracked mirror, his eyes drawn to the figure standing behind him. It was a man, tall and gaunt, with long, unkempt hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to burn with an unnatural intensity. He was dressed in a faded work shirt and jeans, and his face was etched with a look of profound sadness and longing.
I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest, but there was no one there. I checked the stalls, the corners, every inch of the restroom, but it was completely empty. Shaking off the unsettling experience, I returned to my truck, eager to leave the rest stop behind. But as I climbed into the driver's seat, I noticed something strange. Lying on my dashboard, right where I kept my logbook, was a small white feather. I had never believed in ghosts, but there was something about that feather, and the unsettling feeling that came with it, that I couldn't quite shake.
Chapter 4: The Vanishing Truck. On a desolate stretch of Highway 101, known as the Redwood Highway, which snakes its way along the rugged California coastline, a seasoned trucker named Frank found himself at the heart of a mystery that would haunt him for years to come.
I'm Frank, a man who prides himself on his level-headedness and my ability to handle any situation the road throws at me. I was hauling a load of timber south towards San Francisco. It was one of those nights where the fog rolled in thick and heavy, reducing visibility to mere feet. The air was thick with the smell of salt and pine, and the only sounds were the rhythmic thud of my wipers and the occasional mournful cry of a foghorn in the distance. I was driving cautiously, my eyes glued to the road, when I noticed the headlights of a semi-trailer up ahead, its taillights glowing red in the fog. The truck was moving slowly, as if struggling to navigate the treacherous conditions. I eased off the accelerator, maintaining a safe distance as I followed the truck.
As they rounded a particularly sharp bend, Frank noticed something strange. The truck ahead seemed to be driving straight into a dense wall of fog, thicker than any he had ever seen. Frank watched in disbelief as the truck entered the fog bank, and then simply vanished. One moment it was there, its taillights glowing red, the next it was gone, swallowed by the swirling white abyss as if it had never existed at all.
I slammed on the brakes, my truck skidding to a stop. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to see through the fog, but there was nothing. No sound, no sign of the truck, no explanation for where it could have gone.
Chapter 5: The Haunted CB Radio. The CB radio, once a lifeline for truckers, a way to connect with each other, share news, warnings and stories from the road, has largely been replaced by modern technology. But there are still those who rely on its crackle and static, especially on long, lonely stretches of highway where cell service is non-existent.
I'm Mike, a solitary trucker who loved nothing more than the open road and the freedom it represented. One unforgettable night in the Nevada desert, the familiar comfort of my CB radio turned into a source of terror. I was hauling a load of produce across the vast emptiness of Nevada. The sun had set hours ago, and the desert night stretched before me, a tapestry of darkness sprinkled with a million twinkling stars. I flipped through the channels on my CB, hoping to catch a friendly voice, a familiar drawl that would break the monotony of the long drive. But the only sound that greeted me was static and the occasional burst of unintelligible chatter. Then, I heard it. A voice, faint at first, almost lost in the static, calling out my handle.
Breaker 19, this is Big Red. Come in, Mike, do you copy? The voice was deep and gravelly, with a strange echo to it, as if it were coming from the bottom of a well.
My pulse quickened. I grabbed the mic. Big Red, this is Mike. I copy. What's your 20? But there was no response. Just more static and the eerie silence of the desert night. I tried again, my voice tight with a mixture of curiosity and growing unease. Big Red, do you copy? Over.
The voice came back, closer this time, stronger, more insistent. Get off this road, Mike. Turn back now. It's not safe. Whether these stories are true or just figments of tired imaginations, they certainly add a spooky element to the life of a trucker. They serve as chilling reminders that even in the age of GPS and satellite radio, the open road can still hold mysteries we can't explain. So the next time you see a trucker on the highway, give them a wave and a smile. They might just have a chilling tale to tell. Have you ever experienced anything eerie on the road? A strange encounter, an unexplained event, a moment that sent shivers down your spine? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going and see if we can unravel the mysteries of the road together. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling tales. Stay safe out there and sleep tight. You never know what might be lurking on the road less traveled.